I died with my eyes open, choking on betrayal. My wife Emma's confession replaying as my car spun off the bridge. I've been sleeping with Lily's teacher for a year. Our 8-year-old daughter had covered for them, sending fake texts from her mother's phone while Emma was with Daniel. She wanted mommy to be happy again. I was working 60-hour weeks to buy the vacation home Emma had already chosen curtains for with her lover. Then darkness swallowed me. But the universe wasn't finished. I woke up 5 years earlier before I ever met Emma, before the wedding, before the lies. This time around I wouldn't be the fool begging for scraps of affection. This time she would be the one begging while I found true love with someone who deserved it. I heard the honk first. Then the headlights stretched across my vision like twin suns, filling the entire windshield. I never even hit the brakes. The car spun like a carnival ride. My knuckles white against the steering wheel as a guardrail gave way beneath 2 tons of German engineering. There was a moment of weightlessness as the sedan tipped over the edge of the bridge. The river looked black under the night sky. I remember thinking how strange it was that I felt calm. The betrayal that had sent me driving aimlessly at midnight seemed distant now, replaced by the curious certainty that this was fitting. A neat end to the mess Emma had made of our life together. I've been sleeping with Lily's teacher for a year. Her voice had been steady when she told me, like she'd rehearsed it. No tears, no guilt, just the practical tone she used when explaining why we needed a new dishwasher. Daniel and I never meant for it to happen. Daniel, our 8-year-old daughter's homeroom teacher. The man who sat across from us at parent-teacher conferences, complimenting us on what a wonderful job we were doing with Lily. All while he was sleeping with my wife. The water rushed up to meet me, glass shattered, metal twisted. Then nothing. I woke up gasping, sweat-soaked sheets twisted around my legs. Morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains. My hand automatically reached for the empty space beside me, but there was no Emma there. There hadn't been for, wait, this wasn't my apartment. The sparse furniture, the movie poster from college, the ancient IKEA desk in the corner. I hadn't seen this place in years. Not since. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, an ancient flip phone I hadn't owned since my 20s. The screen showed a text from my buddy Mike. Don't forget, blind date tonight at Barolo's, 7 p.m. Her name is Emma. Don't be late this time, jackass. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. Emma. The blind date where I'd met my future wife. But that was 5 years ago. I scrambled out of bed, nearly falling, and rushed to the bathroom mirror. The face that stared back was mine, but younger. No lines around the eyes, no silver threading through dark hair at the temples. I was 29 again, before Emma, before Lily, before the betrayal that had sent me driving off a bridge. I was alive, and I had a second chance. The first hour was confusion. I paced the apartment, touching everything, opening drawers, checking my bank account on a computer that was practically an antique by my standards. Everything confirmed what seemed impossible. I had traveled back in time. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands shaking. This wasn't some near-death hallucination. The weight of the revelation pressed down on me. I had knowledge of 5 years that hadn't happened yet. I knew about companies that would boom, stocks that would soar, even winning. Lottery numbers if I could remember them correctly. But more importantly, I knew about Emma. I remembered our first date. How she'd worn a blue dress that made her eyes look like the ocean. How she'd laughed at my jokes and touched my hand across the table. How we'd walked through the park afterward, and she'd kissed me first, tasting like red wine and possibilities. I remembered our wedding day, her father crying as he walked her down the aisle. The honeymoon in Costa Rica, where we'd been too sunburned to make love for 3 days. The look on her face when the pregnancy test came back positive. The way she'd squeezed my hand so hard during labor that I lost feeling in my fingers for an hour. And I remembered Lily, our perfect little girl with Emma's eyes and my stubborn chin. The way she'd call for me when she had nightmares. How she'd sit on my lap when I worked from home, drawing pictures of our family. The family that Emma had destroyed. Daniel made mommy happy again, Lily had told me. tear-streaked and confused after I'd found the text messages. My 8-year-old daughter had been sending me fake messages from her mother's phone while Emma was with him. "You're always working. Daddy, Mommy said you don't love us enough." I buried my face in my hands, the grief and rage washing over me again. 60-hour work weeks to save for the vacation home Emma had already chosen curtains for with her lover, the joint account she'd been draining to fund their weekend getaways, the college fund for Lily I'd caught her borrowing from. The blind date was in 10 hours. If I went, the timeline would unfold exactly as before. I would meet Emma, fall in love, marry her, have Lily, and 5 years from now discover the affair that would destroy me. No, not this time. I picked up the phone and texted Mike. "Can't make it tonight." Something came up. His reply was immediate. "Dude, no. This girl is perfect for you. My wife says she's gorgeous and smart." "Trust me," I wrote back. "She's not the one." That night, at exactly 7 p.m., I sat in my car across from Barolo's, watching the entrance. She arrived at 7:15 wearing that blue dress I remembered. Even from a distance, she was beautiful, her dark hair falling in waves down her back. She checked her phone, looked around, then went inside. I sat there for an hour, watching her wait for me through the restaurant window. She checked her phone constantly, ordered a glass of wine, then another. At 8:30, she paid her bill and left, her face a mask of disappointment and annoyance. I followed her home, keeping my distance. She lived in the apartment on Maple Street, the one she'd eventually give up to move in with me. I watched the light go on in her window, saw her silhouette as she changed out of the blue dress. This was Emma before she became my wife, before she became a mother, before she became a cheater. I could warn her about what would happen, try to change her future as well as mine. But what would be the point? She had revealed her true self in that other timeline. I drove away from her apartment, a strange lightness in my chest. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt like I could breathe again. The future stretched before me, unwritten. This time I would make different choices. This time I would protect my heart. This time I would let Emma chase me. And when she caught me, I would be ready. 6 months into my second chance at life, I barely recognized myself. I'd left my dead-end job and used my foreknowledge to secure a position at Vertex Technologies, a small startup I knew would revolutionize cloud security within 2 years. My investment portfolio was already flourishing with early shares in companies that would soon dominate their markets. I lived in a different neighborhood now, far from anywhere Emma might accidentally cross my path. Some nights I still woke up reaching for her, phantom memories of a life that now would never exist. What haunted me most wasn't losing Emma, but Lily, my daughter who would never be born, at least not to me. I wondered if some version of her soul would find its way to another family, another father who might protect her from heartbreak better than I had. The bookstore became my Saturday ritual. I'd spend hours browsing through shelves, buying books I'd always meant to read but never had time for when I was working those 60-hour weeks to fund Emma's betrayal. It was there I first saw Cassandra. She was in the mathematics section, frowning at a textbook. In my first life, I'd met Cassandra as Lily's math tutor, a quiet woman Emma had criticized for being plain and too serious. Now, seeing her without Emma's poisonous commentary coloring my perception, I noticed different things. How her eyes lit up when she explained differential equations to a lost college student, the elegant line of her neck as she tilted her head in thought, the confidence in her posture that spoke of someone comfortable in her own skin. "Excuse me," I said, reaching past her for a book I didn't need. "Sorry to interrupt." She glanced up, startled. "No problem. Are you a math enthusiast too?" "Recovering finance major," I admitted. "Numbers and I have a love-hate relationship." "Finance," she repeated, smiling slightly. "Let me guess. Wall Street?" "God, no. Tech sector. Small company you've probably never heard of." "Try me. I follow technology stocks as a hobby." We talked for 2 hours that day, sitting in the bookstore's small cafe. Cassandra was brilliant in ways Emma had never been. Where Emma commanded attention, Cassandra paid attention. Where Emma expected admiration, Cassandra offered insight. I left with her number and a strange lightness in my chest that I hadn't felt since before the crash. Our friendship developed slowly. Coffees became dinners. Conversations about market projections became late-night phone calls about childhood dreams and adult disappointments. I was careful not to rush, not to transfer my feelings from one life into this new one. Cassandra deserved better than to be a replacement for what I'd lost. Then one day, at a charity gala my company sponsored, I saw Emma across the room. She was with a man I didn't recognize, laughing that full-throated laugh that had once made my heart skip. She hadn't aged a day. From the Emma I'd watched walk away from Barolo's 6 months ago. Beautiful, magnetic, a black hole disguised as a star. I excused myself from the conversation I was having and retreated to the balcony, gripping the railing so hard my knuckles went white. I'd known this would happen, eventually. Atlanta wasn't big enough to avoid her forever, especially as I climbed the social and business ladders. "There you are," Cassandra said, appearing beside me. We'd been dating casually for 2 months, taking things slow. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Something like that," I admitted. "My ex is here. The one who broke your heart?" Cassandra had gotten bits and pieces of my story, a sanitized version that omitted time travel and foreknowledge. As far as she knew, I'd been engaged to a woman who cheated on me with a close friend, the very one. "Do you want to leave? We can go grab a burger instead." I looked at her then, really looked at her. Cassandra in a simple black dress that somehow made her more striking than all the designer gowns inside. Cassandra who never made my choices about her. Cassandra who saw me clearly and stayed anyway. "Actually," I said, "would you mind if we went back in? There's someone I'd like you to meet." I didn't seek Emma out, but I didn't avoid her either. We circulated through the party, Cassandra's hand warm in mine, until, inevitably, we collided. "Oh, excuse me," Emma said, turning from her conversation. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw me. "I'm sorry, have we met before? You look so familiar." In another life, I'd spent 5 years memorizing every expression that crossed that face. I knew the exact tone she used when she was fishing for information. "I don't believe so," I said coolly. "I'm Mark Davies. This is my girlfriend, Cassandra Elliott." "Emma Winters," she said, extending her hand. "You must run in similar circles to mine. Perhaps we've crossed paths at an event like this before." "I doubt it. I'm new to this scene." I squeezed Cassandra's hand gently. "We were just heading to the bar. Nice meeting you." I felt Emma's eyes follow us as we walked away. The encounter was brief, forgettable to anyone watching, but I knew Emma well enough to recognize the spark of interest in her eyes. I was a puzzle now, a man who didn't fall immediately under her spell, a challenge. Over the next few weeks, Emma appeared everywhere, at my regular coffee shop, at industry events, even at the park where Cassandra and I sometimes walked on Sunday mornings. She was always friendly, always coincidental, and always alone. The man from the gala had vanished. "How does she even know where to find you?" Cassandra asked one day after Emma had bumped into us at a restaurant 40 minutes from the city. "I've been wondering the same thing," I said. The truth was, I knew exactly how. Emma had always been resourceful when she wanted something. In my first life, she'd pursued me with the same determination until I'd asked her to marry me, believing I was the luckiest man alive to have captured the attention of someone so desirable. This time I wasn't falling for it. "Mark Davies," Emma called out one evening as I left my office building. She was leaning against a sleek black car, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine in her tailored suit. "I think we need to stop pretending this is all coincidence." "I never pretended that," I said, walking past her toward my own car. "Have dinner with me," she said, falling into step beside me. "Just once. I promise I won't bite." I stopped and faced her. Up close, I could see the calculation behind her smile. Had it always been there and I'd been too infatuated to notice? Why? You don't know me. I don't know you. That's not entirely true, is it? She said, tilting her head. I feel like I know you, like I've been looking for you my whole life. In my first life, those words would have melted me. Now they sounded like lines from a script. I'm seeing someone, I said firmly. The math teacher? She seems nice. Emma stepped closer. But you and I both know there's something between us, something worth exploring. I almost laughed at the irony. Here was Emma, using the same strategies that had worked so well the first time around, completely unaware that she was trying to seduce a man who had already lived through her betrayal. Goodbye, Emma, I said, walking away. Her voice followed, across the parking lot. You can't avoid fate, Mark. Some people are meant to find each other no matter what. If only she knew how right she was, and how wrong. Emma became a shadow in my life, always hovering at the edges. She sent flowers to my office, left notes on my car, and somehow obtained my private number. Each message carried the same theme. We were meant to be together. She couldn't stop thinking about me. She'd never felt this way before. Words that had once made my heart race now only reminded me of the lies that would eventually come. You could get a restraining order. Cassandra suggested one night as we cooked dinner in my apartment. Our relationship had deepened over the months, comfortable and honest in a way my relationship with Emma never had been. This is bordering on stalking. It wouldn't stop her, I said, remembering Emma's persistence in our first life. She'd find a way around it. What is it about you that has her so fixated? No offense, but while you're definitely a catch, her behavior seems extreme for someone who barely knows you. I stirred the pasta sauce, buying time. How could I explain that Emma was following a script that had worked perfectly in another timeline? That her pursuit was less about me and more about winning a game only she thought she was playing? Some people want what they can't have, I said finally. The more I ignore her, the more determined she gets. And how long do you plan to ignore her? I heard the real question beneath Cassandra's words. Was I secretly enjoying Emma's attention? Was I keeping my options open? Until she gives up, or I die, I said, pulling Cassandra into my arms. Whichever comes first. She laughed against my chest, tension dissolving. Let's hope it's the former. I wish I could say my resolve remained unshaken, but Emma had always known exactly how to wear down my defenses. As weeks turned to months, her tactics shifted. The romantic overtures gave way to casual invitations to professional events, friendly, group outings where I could bring Cassandra, lunch meetings to discuss potential business collaborations between our companies. It would be stupid to turn down a partnership with Winter Media just because you two have history, my business partner said, when I hesitated over Emma's latest proposal. They're the fastest-growing digital marketing firm in the Southeast. So I found myself sitting across from Emma in a sleek conference room, discussing terms of a contract that would integrate her company's marketing platform with our security software. She was the consummate professional, focused and articulate, showing the business acumen that had made her successful in both timelines. I'm impressed, I admitted after the meeting. Your company's growth is remarkable for such a short time. I've always been good at getting what I want, she said, that familiar smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Most things just require the right strategy and enough patience. The collaboration meant more contact with Emma, more opportunities for her to insert herself into my life. She was careful never to cross professional boundaries when others were watching. But the moment we were alone, the mask would slip. We're good together, Mark, she said one evening after everyone else had left a project meeting. You can't deny there's a connection between us. What I can't deny is that you're deliberately ignoring the fact that I'm in a committed relationship, I replied, gathering my papers. Whatever you think is happening here, it's one-sided. Is it? Then, why do you watch me when you think I'm not looking? Why do you tense up every time I come near you? She moved closer, her perfume exactly the same one she'd worn throughout our marriage. That's not indifference, Mark. That's restraint. She wasn't entirely wrong. I did watch her, but not for the reasons she thought. I was studying her, trying to understand how I'd missed the signs the first time around. The way she mirrored people's body language to create false intimacy, how she'd casually touch my arm or shoulder, establishing physical connection, the subtle ways she'd undermine Cassandra whenever her name came up. These were the same techniques she must have used with Daniel, my daughter's teacher in that other life. Had I been so blind or just unwilling to see? The project with Winter Media concluded successfully, but Emma found other reasons to remain in orbit around my life. She joined the same charitable foundation where Cassandra volunteered. She purchased a condo in my neighborhood. She dated a series of men who bore a striking resemblance to me, making sure I knew about each one. "She's never going to stop," Cassandra said one night. Her voice was tired, the strain of Emma's constant presence finally showing. "As long as you're the challenge she hasn't conquered, she'll keep pushing." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "This isn't fair to you." "No, it's not," Cassandra agreed. "But I'm not going anywhere unless you want me to." I pulled her close, suddenly terrified of losing the real thing I'd found while trying to avoid the counterfeit. "I don't want you to go anywhere. Ever." Our first anniversary arrived on a perfect spring day. I took Cassandra to the mountains to a small cabin overlooking a valley bursting with wildflowers. We hiked, cooked simple meals, and talked about everything and nothing, falling more deeply into the kind of love I hadn't known was possible. On our last night, I presented her with a small box. Not a ring, not yet, but a key. "Move in with me," I said. "Or I'll move in with you. I don't care where we live as long as we're together." Her smile was like sunrise. "Yes." The next morning, as we packed the car to return to the city, my phone chimed with a text. Emma. Because of course she would find a way to intrude on this moment. "You didn't tell me you were taking a romantic getaway. I would have recommended somewhere more luxurious than rustic pine-top cabins." I showed the message to Cassandra, whose eyes widened. "How did she know where we were? Did you post something online?" "No," I said, a chill running down my spine despite the warm day. "And I know you didn't either." We drove back to the city, in uneasy silence, the joy of our weekend dimmed by the realization that Emma's obsession had crossed into something more sinister. At my apartment, Cassandra went straight to the bathroom while I checked the rooms, suddenly paranoid about what else Emma might know. "Mark?" Cassandra's voice was strange, tight with an emotion I couldn't identify. "Can you come here?" She was standing by my desk holding my phone. My stomach dropped. Had Emma sent something else? Something that revealed our history? "Your phone kept buzzing," Cassandra said, her face pale. I thought it might be important, so I glanced at it. "There's a text from a number I don't recognize." She handed me the phone. The message read, "I know you're avoiding me, but we need to talk about Daniel. He's asking questions about us." Daniel. The name hit me like a physical blow. Emma's lover, from my first life. The teacher who had broken apart my family. What the hell was he doing in this timeline? "Who's Daniel?" Cassandra asked, watching my face carefully. I looked up, mind racing. How much could I explain without sounding insane? "He's someone Emma's seeing, apparently. I have no idea why she thinks I would care." "Mark," Cassandra said quietly, "you look like you've seen a ghost." Again. Before I could answer, my phone chimed with another message from the same number. "I saw you with her at the cabin." "The math teacher? Really, Mark? We both know who you really want." I turned off the phone, a sick feeling spreading through my chest. This wasn't random stalking anymore. The mention of Daniel, the specific reference to Cassandra as the math teacher, a detail from my first life that Emma couldn't possibly know. Something was very wrong. "We need to talk," I said to Cassandra, my voice steadier than I felt. "But first, I think we should pack a bag and stay somewhere else tonight." "You're scaring me," she said. "I'm scaring myself," I admitted. "But I promise I'll explain everything." As we drove away from my apartment, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure watching from across the street. Emma, her face expressionless as she tracked our car with her eyes. For the first time since my rebirth, I wondered if I was truly the only one who remembered our shared past. I took Cassandra to a hotel downtown, far from my apartment and any place Emma might think to look for us. In our room, I paced back and forth, trying to figure out how to explain something I barely understood myself. "Mark, you're frightening me," Cassandra said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I need you to tell me what's going on." I stopped pacing and faced her. This woman had become my anchor in this new life, the person who made me believe in second chances. If I lost her because she thought I was insane, the victory over my past would be hollow. "What if I told you that I've lived this life before?" I said finally. "That I know things I shouldn't be able to know because I've already experienced them once?" Her expression shifted from concern to confusion. "Like déjà vu? Like reincarnation, except within my own lifetime." I sat beside her, careful not to touch her. 5 years from now, I was married to Emma. We had a daughter named Lily. I discovered Emma was having an affair with our daughter's teacher, a man named Daniel. The night I found out, I drove my car off a bridge. I swallowed hard. And then, I woke up here, 5 years in the past before I ever met Emma. Cassandra was silent for a long moment. "That's not possible." "I know how it sounds. But how else could Emma know things she shouldn't know? Like where we stayed this weekend, or that you're a math teacher in this life too." "There are rational explanations," Cassandra said. "She could have tracked your phone or followed us or done research on me." "And Daniel? The exact same man who she had an affair with in my first life? Coincidence, or you mentioned him once and forgot." I shook my head. "I never told anyone about him, not even you. The only way Emma could know about Daniel is if she remembers too." Cassandra stood up, putting distance between us. "Listen to yourself, Mark. Time travel? Past lives? This sounds like paranoid delusion, not reality." "I know," I admitted. "But everything I've done since waking up in the past has been to avoid repeating the same mistakes, to avoid Emma, to build a different life." I looked up at her. "To find you." "Find me?" Her voice sharpened. "Did you know me in this other timeline?" "You were Lily's math tutor. We barely interacted, but I always thought you were kind. Emma disliked you because you didn't worship the ground she walked on like everyone else." Cassandra wrapped her arms around herself. "So in this version of events, you deliberately sought me out? Our entire relationship is based on some foreknowledge you claim to have?" I hadn't thought of it that way. "No, I bumped into you by chance at the bookstore, but maybe it wasn't chance. Maybe some things are meant to happen, just in different ways." "I need some air," Cassandra said, moving toward the door. "Wait," I said, panic rising in my chest. "Please don't go. I know how this sounds, but I swear I'm not making this up." She paused with her hand on the doorknob. "I believe that you believe it, but that doesn't make it true." After she left, I sat alone in the hotel room, staring at my phone. 3 more messages from the unknown number, all about Daniel. How he and Emma had been together before she met me. How they were meant to be a family with Lily. Lily. A child who didn't exist in this timeline. A daughter I'd never have. When Cassandra returned 2 hours later, her eyes were red, but her expression was calm. "I've been thinking," she said, sitting across from me. "Either you're having some kind of breakdown or what you're saying is true. Neither option is particularly comforting." "I can prove it," I said suddenly. "The stock market. I've been investing, based on what I know about the future. That's how I've been so successful so quickly." "That could be luck or skill. 10 companies that will either fail or succeed in specific ways over the next 3 years. Write them down, seal the predictions, open them when the time comes." I leaned forward. "Or I could tell you things about yourself that I shouldn't." "No." "Like what?" I hesitated. In the original timeline, I'd only known Cassandra professionally, but Lily had adored her. She'd talked about her teacher constantly, repeating small personal details children absorb without realizing. "You have a scar on your left knee from falling off a horse when you were 12. Your mother has early onset Alzheimer's and calls you by your sister's name. Your favorite book is 100 Years of Solitude, but you tell people it's pride and prejudice because it sounds less pretentious. Cassandra's face drained of color. I've never told you about my mother. You didn't have to. She was quiet for a long time. This is insane. I know. But if it's true, she continued slowly, then Emma somehow remembers this other timeline too, which means she's been pursuing you knowing exactly who you are and what happened between you. Yes. And this Daniel person? I don't know, I admitted. In my original timeline, he was Lily's homeroom teacher. Emma met him at a school function and started the affair shortly after. I never knew if he was the first or just the one I caught her with. But in this timeline, you never met Emma at that blind date. You never married her. You never had Lily. So how does she know Daniel? It was a question that had been haunting me. Maybe some connections are inevitable, just like you and I found each other again. Cassandra rubbed her temples. This is giving me a headache. My phone chimed again. This time it was a call, not a text. Emma's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer it, Cassandra said. I have to know what she wants. I put the phone on speaker. Hello? Mark? Emma's voice was breathless. Thank God you answered. We need to talk in person, it's important. I have nothing to say to you. It's about Lily. My heart stopped. I don't know anyone named Lily. There was a pause. Don't you? Our daughter, Mark, the one we had in the other life, the one you left behind when you drove off that bridge and woke up here. Cassandra's eyes widened. I struggled to find my voice. How do you know about that? Because I was there too. I watched you die. I mourned you. And then one day I woke up before we ever met, with memories of a life that hadn't happened yet. Her voice broke. I've been looking for you for 2 years, Mark. I knew if I could find you, we could make things right this time. Make things right? I repeated, anger flooding my system. You cheated on me with our daughter's teacher. You manipulated Lily into covering for you. You stole from our accounts to fund your affair. I made mistakes, Emma said. Terrible ones. But I've had years to regret them, to understand what I threw away. Meeting you at that blind date was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I ruined it with selfishness and stupidity. Is Daniel part of your redemption tour too? I asked coldly. Daniel is complicated, she said after a pause. He doesn't remember the other timeline, but we found each other anyway. I tried to stay away from him, but it was like gravity, Mark. Some connections are just inevitable. I looked at Cassandra, whose face reflected the same shock I felt. Like, you and me? Exactly, we're meant to be together through lifetimes, can't you feel it? Emma's voice took on an edge of desperation. Meet me tomorrow. Let me explain everything. I can give you back what you lost. We can have Lily again. Lily, my daughter, the child who called for me when thunder frightened her, the little girl who would never exist unless I returned to Emma. I'll meet you, I said, ignoring Cassandra's wide eyes. Text me the location. After I hung up, Cassandra stood. You're not seriously considering going back to her? I need answers, I said. And if what she says is true, she remembers Lily, a child I loved more than my own life. A child who doesn't exist in this timeline, Cassandra reminded me gently. A child who may never exist even if you and Emma got back together. I know, I said, but the pain in my chest disagreed. I'm not going back to her. I just need to understand what's happening. Cassandra sat beside me and took my hand. I'm trying to process all of this. Time travel, past lives, inevitable connections. If it's true, it means everything I thought I knew about reality is wrong. Welcome to my world, I said with a weak smile. And if it's true, she continued, then I have to accept that you're with me now because of knowledge from another timeline, that our meeting wasn't entirely chance. I turned to face her fully. Does that change how you feel? I don't know, she admitted. I need time to think. I understand, I said. though the thought of losing her made me feel hollow. Whatever you decide, I want you to know that what I feel for you is real. More real than anything I ever felt for Emma, in either timeline. Cassandra looked at me with eyes that had seen through my defenses from the first day at the bookstore. Meet with her, get your answers, then we'll talk about what comes next. The next morning, I kissed Cassandra goodbye outside the hotel and promised to call her afterward. She squeezed my hand, her eyes uncertain but determined. Whatever Emma had to say, we would face it together. Or so I thought. A year passed like a fever dream. After meeting with Emma that day, after learning the impossible truth that she too remembered our shared past, I made a choice that changed everything. I chose Cassandra. I chose the future, not the past. Emma had begged, offering memories of Lily as currency, painting vivid portraits of a child I would never see grow up. She'd cried, promising she'd changed, that her time with Daniel was truly over, that she'd spent every day since her rebirth searching for me to make amends. I'd listened, my heart torn between the daughter I'd lost and the woman who sat waiting for me at the hotel. In the end, there was no real choice. The Emma who stood before me was still the Emma who had betrayed me, who even now admitted to finding Daniel in this timeline too. Some patterns couldn't be broken. We're done, I'd told her firmly, in this life and any other. Cassandra had been waiting just as she promised. We'd built our life carefully after that, moving forward with clear eyes about who we were and the strange circumstances that had brought us together. I asked her to marry me 6 months later on a quiet Tuesday morning over coffee. No grand gestures necessary between two people who saw each other clearly. Now we stood in the living room of our new home, the same house I'd bought for Emma in that other life transformed by Cassandra's warmth into something entirely different. The housewarming party buzzed around us, friends and colleagues raising glasses to new beginnings. In my arms I held our 2-month-old son, Thomas, named for Cassandra's father. When people commented on how naturally fatherhood came to me, I smiled and said nothing about the daughter I'd raised in another life. He's finally asleep, I whispered to Cassandra, who looked radiant despite the exhaustion of new motherhood. I'll put him down and rejoin the party. She kissed me gently. Take your time. Your investors are all half drunk anyway. I carried Thomas to his nursery, settling him in the crib I'd built myself. In my first life, Emma had insisted on hiring decorators for Lily's room, creating a perfect space she could photograph for social media. This time, Cassandra and I had painted the walls ourselves, hanging simple shelves and filling them with books we couldn't wait to read to our son. I stood watching Thomas sleep, overwhelmed by how different this life had become. The past felt like a dream, vivid but fading. Sometimes I wondered if Lily existed somewhere, perhaps born to different parents, living a life untouched by the mistakes Emma and I had made. I hoped so. A commotion from the living room pulled me from my thoughts. Raised voices, the sound of something breaking. I closed Thomas's door quietly and hurried down the hallway. I froze at the entrance to the living room. Emma stood in the center of the space, wild-eyed and disheveled. Beside her was Daniel, looking uncomfortable and out of place. Our guests had backed away, forming a half-circle of stunned silence around the uninvited visitors. There he is, Emma said, her voice slurring slightly. The man of the hour. Congratulations on the beautiful home, Mark. It looks just like the, one we picked out together 5 years from now. Cassandra appeared at my side, her hand finding mine. Emma, you need to leave. Oh, the math teacher speaks, Emma said with a bitter laugh. Does she know, Mark? Does she know about the child we had together? The daughter who loved you more than anything in the world? Daniel put his hand on Emma's arm. Emma, please, this isn't what we discussed. You said we were just stopping by to congratulate them. She shook him off. And you don't even know who you are, do you? The man who destroyed my marriage. The teacher who couldn't keep his hands off another man's wife. She gestured wildly at our confused guests. None of you know anything. You're all just puppets reading from scripts you don't understand. That's enough, I said, stepping forward. You're drunk and you're causing a scene. It's time for you to go. Or what? Emma challenged. You'll drive off another bridge? Leave another child fatherless? The room went silent. I could feel the weight of every gaze, the uncomfortable shifting of people who sensed they were witnessing something. Deeply private and painful. Everyone, Cassandra said calmly. Would you mind giving us a few minutes? There's more wine on the patio and the view of the sunset is lovely. Our guests filed out, conversations resuming in awkward whispers. When the room was empty except for the four of us, I turned to Daniel. You should take her home. Daniel looked miserable. I'm sorry about this. She's been obsessed with you for as long as I've known her. When she found out you were having a housewarming party today, she insisted we come to congratulate you. He glanced at Emma, who was now staring out the window. I had no idea she was going to do this. How long have you been together? Cassandra asked. About 8 months, Daniel said. We met at a conference where I was speaking. I'm a child psychologist. He hesitated. She talks about a daughter sometimes, about parallel lives and second chances. I thought it was metaphorical until today. I felt a chill run through me. The man who had been Lily's teacher in my first life was a child psychologist in this one. Some connections really were inevitable. She needs help, I said quietly. Emma turned from the window. I'm not crazy, Mark. You know I'm not. We lived another life together. We had a daughter. These are facts. They're memories, I corrected her. From a timeline that no longer exists? We've both been given second chances, Emma. I've made my choice. It's time for you to make yours. I'm pregnant, she announced suddenly. It's Daniel's baby. A girl. We're naming her Lily. The room tilted beneath my feet. Cassandra's hand tightened around mine, anchoring me to the present. Emma, Daniel said, clearly shocked. We agreed to wait to tell people. He deserves to know, Emma insisted, her eyes never leaving my face. Our daughter is going to be born again, Mark. Just not to us this time. I couldn't breathe. The idea that Lily, my Lily, might come into the world as Emma and Daniel's child was both horrifying and strangely comforting. The soul I'd loved most in the world would exist again, just not as mine to protect and cherish. Congratulations, I managed to say. I hope you'll be better parents than we were. Emma's face crumpled, the cruel edge suddenly gone from her voice. I looked for you for so long. When I woke up in the past, all I could think about was finding you, making things right. But you disappeared. You changed your job, your address, everything. When I finally tracked you down, you were with her. She looked at Cassandra with naked hostility. The woman who should have been nothing more than our daughter's tutor. Maybe in that other life, Cassandra said steadily. But in this one, I'm his wife and the mother of his child, and you're trespassing in our home. Daniel stepped forward, taking Emma's arm more firmly this time. We're leaving. I'm sorry for disrupting your party. As he guided Emma toward the door, she turned back one last time. I remember everything, Mark. Every moment we shared, every promise we made. Do you remember how Lily used to sleep with her arms above her head, like she was surrendering to her dreams? Do you remember how she cried when you missed her dance? Recital because you were working late again? Each word was a dagger, precise and cruel. I did remember. I remembered everything about the daughter I'd loved and lost. Goodbye, Emma, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. I wish you healing. After they left, Cassandra and I stood in silence for a long moment. Then, from down the hall, Thomas began to cry, the present calling us back from the past. I'll get him, Cassandra said, squeezing my hand before releasing it. No, I said, let me. I found Thomas wide awake, tiny fists waving in protest at being left alone. I lifted him carefully, cradling him against my chest as I had done countless times with Lily. He quieted immediately, secure in my arms. You're not her, I whispered against his downy head, and that's okay. You're you, and that's even better. I stood at the window of my home office watching Thomas chase butterflies across our backyard. At 3 years old, he was all curiosity and motion, a bundle of energy that never seemed to deplete. Behind him, Cassandra knelt in the garden, her pregnant belly making the simple act of weeding and exercise in determination. Our second child, a girl, was due in less than a month. Sometimes I caught myself searching Thomas's face for traces of Lily, some confirmation that souls recycled themselves across timelines, but Thomas was entirely himself, with Cassandra's analytical mind and my stubborn chin. Our daughter would be her own person too, not a replacement or a reincarnation. I had made peace with that. The day after Emma's dramatic appearance at our housewarming party, I'd sat Cassandra down and told her everything I could remember about Lily. Not just the good parts, but all of it. The bedtime stories, the skinned knees, the time she cut her own hair the night before school pictures, the way she'd climbed into my lap after Emma's confession, telling me it was okay if Mommy loved Mr. Daniel because she still loved me best. She deserves to be remembered, Cassandra had said, tears in her eyes, even if only by us. We hadn't heard from Emma for months after that night. Then a year ago, a card arrived announcing Lily's birth. No note, no return address, just a simple birth announcement with a photo of a tiny girl with Emma's dark hair. I'd held it for a long time before placing it in my desk drawer, unsure whether keeping it was an act of remembrance or self-torture. Daniel had reached out a few months later. He and Emma had moved across the country, he explained. The pregnancy and birth had stabilized her somewhat, given her a focus beyond the past she claimed to remember. She was seeing a therapist who specialized in delusional disorders, though Daniel admitted he sometimes wondered if her delusions might be something else entirely. I offered no confirmation or denial, only wished them well. "Daddy, look!" Thomas's voice pulled me from my thoughts. He was holding up a caterpillar, his face alight with discovery. "It's going to be a butterfly." I moved away from the window to join my family in the sunlight. This was my reality now, these simple moments that accumulated into a life worth living. The past was a shadow, growing fainter with each passing year. That evening, after Thomas was asleep, Cassandra and I sat on the porch swing, her feet in my lap as I massaged her swollen ankles. "I've been thinking about names," she said, running her hands over her belly. "What about Elizabeth?" "It's beautiful," I agreed. We'd been circling around names for months, unable to settle on one that felt right. "Elizabeth Lily Davies," she added softly. "If that's not too painful for you." I looked at her, this woman who had become the center of my second chance. "You would do that?" "She was your daughter, Mark. In another life, but still yours. I think it's a way to honor her, to carry a piece of her forward." Cassandra's eyes were gentle. "Unless it would be too hard for you to say her name every day." I considered this. Would calling my daughter Lily keep me tethered to a past that no longer existed? Or would it help me integrate that loss into the life I now cherished? "Elizabeth Lily Davies," I repeated, testing the weight of it. "I think it's perfect." Cassandra's smile was radiant. "So do I." 2 weeks later, I was sorting through mail when an envelope caught my attention. The return address was unfamiliar, but the handwriting was Emma's. Inside was a short note and a photograph. "Thought you might want to see her on her first birthday. She's smart and stubborn, just like before. Some things don't change across lifetimes. Emma." The photo showed a dark-haired little girl smashing a birthday cake, her face full of joy. She looked nothing like my Lily, yet somehow exactly like her. The same determined set to her mouth, the same mischievous glint in her eye. I sat down heavily, the photo trembling in my hand. I didn't show it to Cassandra that night, or the next. I carried it with me for days, taking it out when I was alone, studying the face of the child who both was and wasn't my daughter. Finally, on the third day, I placed it on the kitchen counter where Cassandra would find it. She said nothing when she saw it, just studied it carefully before looking up at me. "She seems happy." "Yes," I agreed. "She does." "Are you okay?" I considered the question. Was I okay knowing Lily existed in this world but not as my child? That she would grow up calling another man daddy, with no memory of the father who had once loved her more than his own life? I'm grateful, I said finally, that she exists at all, that she has a chance at a better life than the one we gave her. Cassandra wrapped her arms around me, her pregnant belly pressed between us. You're a good man, Mark Davies. I'm trying to be, I said. And I meant it. When Elizabeth Lily Davies was born on a warm spring morning, pink and perfect and screaming her arrival to the world, I felt something shift inside me. The weight I'd carried since my rebirth 5 years ago lightened as I held my daughter for the first time. Not because she replaced the child I'd lost, but because her existence proved that life continued, that love persisted, that second chances were possible. Our family settled into a new rhythm. Thomas was a doting big brother, Elizabeth was a determined little soul who rarely cried, and Cassandra and I navigated parenthood with the hard-won wisdom of people who knew how precious and precarious happiness could be. 3 years passed in a blur of birthday parties, preschool art projects, and weekend adventures. My company thrived, Cassandra returned to teaching part-time, and the memory of that other life faded to a soft edge around my current joy. Then came the day I glimpsed Emma across a crowded playground. I'd taken the children to the park while Cassandra graded papers, and there she was, sitting on a bench watching a dark-haired girl on the swings. Lily, now 4 years old, pumping her legs furiously to go higher. Our eyes met across the distance. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then, slowly, Emma raised her hand in a small wave. I nodded in acknowledgement but stayed where I was. Thomas, climbing on the jungle gym beside me, Elizabeth secure in her carrier against my chest. Emma looked different. Calmer. The frantic energy that had surrounded her at our last meeting was gone, replaced by a quiet stillness. The woman who had once been the center of my universe was now just another mother at the park, watching her child play. After a while she stood and called to Lily, who jumped from the swing at its highest point, fearless as she had always been. As they prepared to leave, Emma hesitated, then walked in my direction, Lily skipping beside her. "Hello, Mark," she said when they reached us. Her voice was steady, without the desperate edge I remembered. "It's been a while." "It has," I agreed, keeping my voice neutral. "You look well." "I am, mostly." She glanced down at Elizabeth, sleeping, peacefully against my chest. "Your daughter?" "Yes, Elizabeth. And that's Thomas on the slide." Lily tugged at her mother's hand. "Mom, can I go play with that boy?" "We were just leaving, sweetie," Emma said gently. "Maybe another time." Lily looked up at me, curiosity in her eyes, but no recognition. No trace of the child who had once called me daddy, who had crawled into my bed during thunderstorms. She was just a bright-eyed little girl, impatient to return to play. "She looks happy," I said after Lily ran a few steps ahead. "She is," Emma confirmed. "We both are. Daniel is good to us." She paused. "I still remember everything, Mark. But I've learned to live with it, to see it as a gift rather than a curse. A chance to do better this time." "I'm glad," I said, and found that I meant it. The bitterness I'd carried had mellowed over the years, softened by my own happiness. "And you?" she asked. "Are you happy?" I looked at Thomas, now beckoning me urgently toward some new discovery. At Elizabeth, stirring against my chest. I thought of Cassandra waiting at home, of the life we'd built together, solid and true. "Yes," I said simply. "I am." Emma nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "Good. That's good." She started to turn away, then looked back one last time. "I think, in the end, we both got exactly where we were supposed to be." As she walked away, Lily's hand in hers, I felt the final threads of my old life release their hold. The woman who had betrayed me, the child I had lost, they had their own path now, separate from mine, I watched until they disappeared from view, then turned to where Thomas was calling me, his voice full of excitement over some treasure he'd found in the sand. This was my life now. This was my family. The ghosts of what might have been would always linger at the edges of my memory, but they no longer had the power to haunt me. I had loved and lost and found love again. I had been broken and made whole. I had been given a second chance, and I had made it count. I walked toward my son, my daughter, warm, against my heart, ready to see what wonders awaited us next.